Hello, and welcome to our latest i2 Tips and Tricks video to accompany issue 16 of our Shortest Path training newsletter. We've got a couple of tips and tricks for you today. One to show you here in Analyst Notebook and one in iBase. We'll start off with Analyst Notebook. So we'd like to show you the new time wheel analytical tool. To do this, I'm just going to open up a chart that we've already prepared. And it's just some telephone data. We've got some telephone entities, and between them we've got links. On each link, we've added the date and time, so a true date and time, and we've put it in the date and time area. The time wheel has been placed on the Analyze tab, as it is an analytical tool. So I'll just tell it to open up here, and I'll fit to window so we can see our chart more clearly. So the time wheel opens up here as a pane tool on the left hand side, and it's quite similar to the heat matrix option that you have in bar charts and histograms, if you've ever seen that before. It just gives you a new way to visualize date and time information held on your charts. And once you've created it, it can help identify periods of high or low activity, as well as possible patterns in your date and time data. It can help you reveal things like pattern of life in your data sets, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. A bit like bar charts and histograms, it can also be copied into other bits of software as well. So let's take a look at how to make use of the time wheel. First of all, you have to choose your property. And here we can see it's picking up that date and time we've got on each link in our chart. Now it can also see date and time on data records. So if you're using data you've pulled out of iBase, it could take date and time from there. And it can also see date and time on attributes. So if you have an event date, perhaps, or an event time, it could see those and make use of them as well. Once you've chosen your property, we'd like to choose what it's showing in its sectors. And here I've chosen hour of day. So the sectors are these bands going into the center of the time wheel. We've got our hours of the day all the way around the edge using the 24-hour clock. We also need to choose what we want to have on our rings. We've got our standard date and time parameters here again, and we've chosen day of the week, and here you can see each ring corresponds to a different day of the week. So in this particular data set, we've got quite a strong pattern of activity. It looks like most of the calls start between 9 and 10 in the morning, and they appear to end between 9 and 10 at night. Certain areas, certain sectors within this time wheel are coloured a darker red than others, and the darker the red, the higher the frequency. So we've got several periods here that it's identified as being higher frequency periods in our whole set of date and time. The lighter the colour, the lower the frequency. So we've got completely white sectors here. That means there's no activity. Very light means just one or perhaps two calls. And then, as I said before, the darker, the higher the frequency. You can interact with the time wheel sectors, just like you can with bar charts and histograms and the heat matrix. So I've just held down Control to select 4 of my most populated sectors, and it's highlighted these links on my chart, which are the calls taking place in the highest frequency of the time wheel. We do also have some other options with the time wheel. We can tell it to look at time zones on our chart. Now in this particular set of data, we've only got one time zone operating, and it's the time zone in the date and time area. You can see you can either tell it to look at chart time zones, or like we've done here, use the item time zones, which in this case means the links. We can also choose different scale colors. Right now we've got a red scale, could change it to a blue scale, which is slightly less aggressive. If you've got a time wheel that you'd like to use in another product, maybe to make part of a report or send it in an email to someone, you can also just copy your time wheel. I've got Microsoft Word open here. We'll just paste that into Word. Now you can see it makes quite a nice colourful addition to another document. The second tip we'd like to explore with you today is in iBase. So I've got iBase open down the bottom here. And this iBase database is our training database. It's one that we use on all of our iBase courses. And we've also got it running in our Amazon workspace. Again, if you ever do an online course with us, this is what you'd be using whilst we trained you. What we'd like to talk about in iBase are indexed fields. So what is indexing and what's it for? Well, the index in iBase is similar to an index in a book. It allows the database to find data in those fields more quickly. And your database designer will or should have index those fields that are most commonly searched on. So for a person, they might want to index the name fields or the date of birth. For a telephone entity, it might be the telephone number. Let's go and have a look at a couple of fields that we've indexed in our database. If I open up our entities, we've got a person entity in our database. And down the bottom here, the bottom of the Explorer, we've got an indexed column. And this lists all the fields that we've chosen to index on our person entity. So pretty typically we've got first name, last name, date of birth, and also URN, unique record number or unique reference number, and that's actually the record ID in our database. You can find out which fields have been indexed in your database by selecting any entity. So here you can see on event, we've got a few different indexed fields. It will differ between databases because every iBase database is bespoke, created for whatever purpose it was designed for. You can also go to Properties and have a look at the database design report if you'd like a full list of indexed fields in your database. So why do we want indexed fields at all? Well, they come in most useful when we want to search for something. So if I do a find on a person entity in our training database, you can see by default we're limited to searching on these four fields: first name, last name, date of birth, and URN. But that's because of this tick box here. By default, this box is ticked and it will restrict your searches in find to only indexed fields. If I want to search on other fields, I can always untick it and it'll give me access to them here so I can search on them. For now, I'll leave it turned on. Index fields come into play most when you're searching for something like a starts with or an equal to search. So if in the last name here I just search for the beginning of a last name that I know exists in our database, PIC, we've got some people down here whose last names start with PIC, Picard, Pickett, etc. And although it might not be visible, that search was really sped up by the fact that I'm searching on an indexed field. Similarly, if I search for the first name James, we can see that that search was really quick and it's found a whole long list of Jameses down here. Indexed fields are managed by your database designer, and whether a field is indexed or not can be easily changed by them over time. So if you're finding searches take a long time, or you've got a particular field or fields that you want to search on regularly and you feel the searches are taking too long, just check and see if it's been indexed. If it hasn't been indexed, then have a talk to your designer and see if they'd be willing to change that for you. As always, we really hope that you've enjoyed the tips and tricks that we've shared with you during this session. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then please do email our email address. It's info@shortestpathtraining.co.uk. And we've got lots more tips and tricks videos on our YouTube channel. All of them go along with our newsletters, all of which you can download as a free PDF from our website here. We're also on LinkedIn, so if you'd like to reach out to us on there, please do. We do produce other tips and tricks on LinkedIn as well. But for now, thanks very much and goodbye.